You're listening to a Roddenberry podcast.
Mission Log Prodigy, a Roddenberry Star Trek podcast. Episode 17, Ghost in the Machine.
Welcome back into another episode of Mission Log Prodigy, a Roddenberry Star Trek podcast. I'm Norman Lau.
And I am Charlene Schmidt. Just like on our flagship Mission Log podcast, each week here on Mission Log Prodigy, we discuss each and every episode of this animated series, and we discover what makes each of them special and see if there's any morals, messages, or meanings that we've learned.
This week, episode 17, Ghost in the Machine. Please remember that Mission Log Prodigy is an in-depth episode review podcast, so if you've not seen Ghost in the Machine yet, please put us on pause. This is you coming back from pause after you've watched the episode, and hopefully many times, and then you're going to hear us talk all about it.
That's right. Mission Log Prodigy is produced for YouTube and as a regular podcast, so please be sure to engage the like and the share buttons. Subscribe to our channel on YouTube. It's Roddenberry Entertainment. Or if you are listening to us on podcasts, however you listen to them, please make sure you're subscribed there. And don't forget, you can also follow Mission Log Prodigy on Twitter at ML_Prodigy. And that way you keep up with all the latest news and updates.
So before we jump into the recap, here's why we think our podcast is so unique. We want to hear from all of the younger Prodigy fans out there. We love hearing from the older officers, but it's the cadets that we really want to hear from. So please, cadets, send us your 1 to 2 minute voice message to missionlog-prodigy@roddenberry.com. That's missionlog, the dash, and then prodigy@roddenberry.com. And in your message, cadets, listen up. Please answer these questions. What is your first name and age? Did you like the episode? What was your favorite part? And most importantly, what did you learn?
Yes. Oh, we look forward to your comments all the time. So we can't wait to hear what you have to say about this one. So your answers will be featured at the end of our show. And like we do, we're going to start things off by answering these questions ourselves. So Norm, did you like this episode?
Okay, so I didn't like this episode as much as I like Preludes. Preludes has been pretty much a very top tier episode. But that being said, the more I watched this episode, the more I liked it because it started giving us so many different insights into more of the personalities of our crew. So it's kind of like I wasn't expecting this and it kind of threw me off, but then I started watching more and I started liking it more. Does that make sense?
It absolutely does. I'm right there with you.
Okay.
This episode was not at all what I was expecting this episode to be.
Mm-hmm.
That said, I mean, visually, this was stunning. It was eye candy all the way. The music was great. I loved seeing everybody's different stress relief holo programs because they were all so different from one another. But I'm not going to lie. First time I watched this, it was a little disappointing because I was in my head thinking, why are we doing a holodeck malfunction episode when really we should be seeing what's going on with Admiral Janeway on the Dauntless?
Uh-huh. Yep.
Like, what are we doing here? So it wasn't until in retrospect, when I look back at what this episode was doing, was I able to start fully appreciating it. And like you, the more times I've watched this, the more I've grown to appreciate it. So now that I see what the writers are doing with it, I think it's only going to grow in its value as a part of the season as a whole.
Mm-hmm.
So.
I totally agree. Absolutely.
What was your favorite part?
What was my favorite part? So, okay, I don't know. I mean, it may be the same for you, maybe the same for a lot of people, but how can it not be, Murph singing and dancing? I mean, seriously. Right.
Come on. We all loved it.
I mean, talk about like being able just like being thrown like the most curviest of curves in this episode. Right.
For real. What Jake and Pog just says, what?
Yeah.
That is all of us with our collective jaws on the floor. Unreal what we are seeing before our eyes. We've never seen Murph move like this.
But I love this, like this little sequence of dialogue. So Rock goes, Murph can sing, and then Gwen goes, and can dance, and then Zero drops a little bit of this shade, like, we're convincingly lip syncing. I'm like, oh, come on, Zero.
Well, you know what?
Give
Everybody
Murph a
was making
chance.
fun of Zero's program, but why does he have to throw shade at Murph?
No, that's
what I
fair.
would want to
No,
know.
that's fair. That's totally fair. I get it. Like, what's wrong with my program? Why does everyone love Murph's program? You know?
Right?
Okay, a little jealous.
Right.
That's fine. Totally
Like,
fine.
yeah, you can't solve mysteries. Well, that's your loss.
Yeah. So you're
Well,
not
darn
really
it, Norm.
singing, are you? I mean, if I'm not solving mysteries, you're not really singing, right?
There you go.
Yeah. Okay.
There you go.
Gotcha.
Although I would say Zero's practice in the holodeck really paid off in this episode because he did crack the mystery.
True enough. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, okay, we can't have the same answer for all of these, but
Right.
my favorite scene is Murph singing and dancing on that stage. Watch out, Vic Fontaine, because Mr. Murphy No Shoes is in the house, man.
That's right. He has
Where
a
did
full
he get
name,
those
Mr.
moves?
Murphy No Shoes. Yeah.
I love that name.
Nice.
I love the Key Club, that visual of the exterior,
Right.
and the fact that it goes noir. Oh man, that whole sequence was just mwah.
Yeah. It's fantastic. Really, really, really good. Big question though. What did you learn, Shar?
Okay. Now this is a little tougher
Mhm.
this week because I don't think we are done with the morals and messages and meanings for this one. The biggest takeaway I got was right at the very end where the crew finds out that hologram Janeway has been tampered with, and
Mhm.
the one responsible adult that they have in their lives who didn't mean to hurt them did. And sometimes that happens is people, no matter how well-intentioned, may end up hurting you. And what do you do about that?
Yeah.
We haven't seen how the crew is going to handle this, and therefore the moral message and meaning is incomplete as of right now.
Yeah. No, that's a pretty serious issue. And I think we're going to talk about that a little bit more later on.
Oh, yeah, we've got to. I also have one small other one,
Sure.
which is never share your command codes, aka passwords, with anyone, not even Janeway.
Right. There's that. I think that's a tradition in Star Trek where people are like, okay, two-factor authentication might
Nope.
be a thing in the 24th century. Maybe not.
Man, yeah, they really got to up their security.
I know.
How about you, though? What did you learn from this one?
Well, it's kind of I thought it was a little bit, I wouldn't say it was on the nose, but it's something that I was able to see a little quickly. It was this whole, like, no matter how many surprises are thrown at you, this is kind of like, life throws a lot of challenges at you, and you can always count on life to throw more challenges on top of you. That's just the way life is. It's not very simple. Sometimes it's not very clean. Sometimes it's not very pretty. But on the bright side, though, because, that's what, these moral tales are about. On the bright side, maybe dealing with these serious changes that happens when life piles it on. You just kind of need to lean on your found family or your real family. When that happens, you can also have more ice cream. So,
Ice cream is eternal, if I may steal and modify a quote from Discovery.
it very good. I like that. And we're going to talk about ice cream later on too. So
yes, we must.
we have lots of things to reference. We have lots of things to get to. And I think we need to jump right into the recap now and see what this episode was all about. So here we go.
All
Star
right,
Trek
do it.
Prodigy, episode 17, Ghost in the Machine, written by Chad Quant, directed by Andrew Schmidt. What's that old saying? Out of the frying pan and into the fire? Well, that is how our story begins. The Romulans have finally chased the Protostar and her crew out of the neutral zone, where the USS Dauntless and Vice Admiral Janeway are impatiently waiting for them. Dal orders Rock to flash their phasers in a pattern using Morse code to try and communicate their non-hostile intentions, but the Dauntless fires photon torpedoes in return and cripples the Protostar. The Protostar crew watches helplessly as the Dauntless fires one final torpedo, and with a boom and a bright flash, the crisis ends, and the crew finds themselves surrounded by the emitters of the holodeck. Yes, this was all just a training exercise, the 86th to be precise, and for Dal, another failure. Gwen thinks that maybe they should just stop trying to reach Starfleet at all, as hologram Janeway arrives and encourages the crew to get some rest. Jankum Pog has another idea, and one that cures all problems: ice cream. Even though Dal feels like a failure, even though Jankum wants to slap Dr. Noom across his soggy Tellarite face for calling him short, even though Gwen wants to do the same to her father, they just pile on the ice cream and the laughter. Shortly after the crew returns to their quarters, strange things suddenly begin to happen. Random music keeps Dal awake. Gwen sees a strange feral-type humanoid, and Jankum sees, well, what Rock screeches aloud as being a glitter snooch, a cuddly creature from her veterinary holo program. Zero believes that these strange incidents aren't holograms escaping the holodeck, but rather that the entire crew has never left and are still in the holodeck. And yes, even the ice cream was a simulation. No, not the ice cream. As fog rolls through the corridor, transporting the crew somewhere, they soon find themselves standing in front of a very spooky lighthouse, which Zero recognizes as one of their recreational programs of the Cellar Door Society, an amateur sleuthing club complete with musty book-filled library of which even Sherlock Holmes would be jealous. Zero explains that in order for them to access the holodeck arts, they will have to solve a mystery. And sliding through the door's mail slit as if right on cue, several envelopes appear made of transparent paper with different illustrations drawn on each one. Rock deduces that when they're all stacked on top of each other, they form the drawing of a skeleton key, their first clue. However, they are all interrupted by strange music and a bright light pulsing from a nearby door, which upon opening leads them into a neon light-soaked alleyway complete with a biker gang of muscle-bound Tellarites waiting for them at the far end. Zero believes that the holodeck is somehow merging its programs. Jankum shamefully confesses that this is his program for working out some of his shortcomings. He goes right after the gang leader, and after getting hit himself, the punches actually hurt because the safety protocols are off. The danger is real, and in a panic, Dal orders Hologram Janeway, who is the only one still outside the holodeck, to use his command codes to activate the safety protocols, but she can't. So it's up to Rock's well-known brute strength to save them, and she does it by taking out the leader who holds their next clue. The tattoo on his chest looks exactly like the drawing from the cellar door scenario. And with solving another part of the mystery and finding another clue, the holodeck theme changes from neon to noir, as the crew watches their world turn literally into black, white, and shades of gray as they find themselves at the entrance to the Key Club. In this smoke-filled scenario, the crew wonders whose program belongs to, as Mr. Murphy No Shoes jumps on stage and begins singing and dancing. After regaining their senses and spreading out to find the next clue, Gwyn discovers a bartender that looks just like the diviner of her holoprogram, who she finds easy to talk to. Our super sleuths, Rock and Zero, deduce that since the crew's programs out of thousands in the database are the only ones being affected, the holodeck itself is purposefully keeping them there. But why? Suddenly, Rock is bothered hearing an off-key note from the piano. Off-key. As in the missing key, which the crew finds and uses to open a new doorway through the body of the piano, which transports them onto the deck of an old wooden ship. Dal admits that this one is his program, a ship manned with loyal and ego-stroking crew for when Dal needs a bit of a confidence boost. But his program has become a chaotic mishmash for all the crew's previous programs, even the point where the giant sea monster that is sinking his ship is none other than a gigantic sparkle sea hugger, Rock's favorite from her veterinary program. She knows exactly how to treat and defeat this hungry creature with a cannon full of fruit and fiber. Once that happens, another clue appears, and Jankum complains aloud that this game never ends. Zero deduces that this is exactly the case and suggests that they just surrender to the program and go down with the ship and let the holodeck win, which finally ends the program, allowing them to leave. When Hologram Janeway arrives, Zero confronts her with the truth, a truth that is almost impossible for the entire crew to accept. Hologram Janeway has been taken over, both unknowingly and unwillingly, by the living construct, who used her to reprogram the holodeck to ensure that it can complete its mission, one that was jeopardized when Dal and Gwyn confessed to giving up on trying to contact Starfleet. But when Dal gave Hologram Janeway his command codes to survive Jankum's program, that gave the living construct the means to fulfill its primary mission, to destroy Starfleet. As the ship goes to red alert, Janeway realizes that she's been compromised and has to be deactivated. But that can wait, as Dal and the crew have far bigger problems, literally, in front of them. The protostar has left the neutral zone, right into the path of the Dauntless, as Hologram Janeway looks on helplessly and says, "I'm sorry." The end. Woo.
Dun, dun, dun. Nice recap, Norm.
That was a challenge to get all those hologram programs straight. But hey, that's
lots
what we
of
do
transitions, but you did a great job.
We do love our challenges. But here's another challenge. How are we going to get in all of our observations? Because there are many of them.
Oh, man. So many. We're going to have to be very efficient here.
All right. What do
Well,
you
how
say?
about we start off with this where if you don't know, the holodeck malfunction thing is like a trope in Star Trek, and this is probably the best one of those ever.
Yeah.
Because stylistically, we've got just everything on the absolute A game. The music changes along with the visual, and oh man, the moods are just all over the place, and that's just fun. And I hope we get full versions of Nami's tracks for the soundtrack.
It's so good.
I hear him.
The soundtrack in this particular episode is so good. I mean, all of the soundtracks and all the episodes are great, but this one was a lot of fun.
Well, because it has more of a variety.
Right. Especially Mr. Murphy No Shoes.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes, we've got that. We've got like a little bit of hardcore metal, street fighting, and just the sultriness of a mystery house. I mean, man, a little something for everybody here.
Did you? Okay, so I got like a lot of like the Kobayashi Maru Wrath of Khan opening sequence vibes with the Dauntless. I mean, when obviously we realized it was a holodeck program, were you sold that they were actually being chased by the Romulans leaving the neutral zone, or did you think something was up?
You know what? First time through, I did buy it for a little while.
Yeah.
Thinking, we're going to just dive right in. Cool. That's exactly what I was hoping for. Mm-hmm. And then I thought, nah, that's too good to be true. So about halfway through, I figured it out and was not surprised that, oh yeah, this is a simulation. How about you? Did you buy it?
Yeah, I did. Because, after Preludes, Janeway gets knocked out. Then all of a sudden, they're chased by the Dauntless and like, of course, and the Romulans are like, of course, everything's going badly for everybody. And then we got this and I'm like, okay, all right. Okay. You got me. And then the hologram malfunction start happening. I'm like, all right, where's this going? It's okay. You got me. All right. Wash, rinse, repeat.
One of the many ways this episode subverts expectations at every turn.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I have a favorite quote that I want to just get out of the way because it's such a great line.
Mm-hmm.
It is, what sort of lunatic would whip cream? Or whipped cream.
I love
that line.
It goes back to her whole cat boots.
Yes.
Her misunderstanding of certain quotes. Right?
Yeah, there's another one later. It's like,
let's pop this blow stand.
Yeah, this blow stand.
And this is somebody from who has been trained. I mean, this is going all the way back to Lost and Found, who's been trained to understand languages, but these interesting human sayings just kind of elude her. But
sure,
it makes for really funny moments, though. That's for sure.
Really good moments. This one is probably my favorite yet.
Yeah, I love it. I also loved Gwen had another right after that scene, right after the ice cream scene. She was using her heirloom as a pull-up bar.
Yeah, that was pretty cool.
Right? I thought that was like, okay, why not? Sure.
That's pretty handy. Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's getting fit, man. Oh. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Work them guns, Gwen.
I also liked Rock's. So when they were standing in front of the cellar door lighthouse theme, I like how Rock kind of had this rapid fire explanation of how holodecks work. How can Zero be standing all the way over there and we're standing all the way over here? And she goes, motion floor dragging, visual horizon manipulation. I'm like, of course you know that, Rock. Right on cue. Of course
she does. She learned so many things. And what's been kind of cool to see in this latter half of this first season is just sprinkling that into little bits of each episode. We had the weather. This time we have the holodeck. We get a little bit of nutritional science with fruit and fiber. She's been just learning all the sciences.
They better come out with things like glitter snooches and, those that big sea monster, because those would be great toys, ornaments, everything. So,
and when you see one, you have to yell out, glitter snooch.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Now you know why she loves Rock so much. I mean, Murph so much.
Murph, yes. Oh my gosh. Is it any wonder she has this holo program where she's taking care of and healing and nurturing these adorable creatures? That just screams Rock talk from head to toe. And it also reminds me of like some of those like time management game apps, you can download that can suck away hours of your time if you really get engrossed in them. Like, I think there needs to be an app version of this whole thing. And I'm telling you, marketers, you can have this idea, make it.
I don't remember. What was the name? They were like on keychains. I should know this because they were like really big in the 90s.
Neopets.
Neopets. Yeah, exactly. Because
you could like that.
You could go in there and feed them and like, pet them with a button, and they would like put out these little 8-bit or 16-bit hearts that love you. Yeah.
Uh-huh. Just a
Sparkle Sea
hologram
Monster.
version of that.
My favorite. Oh my God. Riley, you're
Love
killing
the
me
way
in this
she said
episode.
Oh, some of the very best lines were from Rock Talk.
Yeah, for sure.
So just the way that she said them, very well done.
What else you got there, Shar?
Well, I have a question for you and the audience, because I started thinking about what everybody's holodeck program was. We know everybody's except for Gwen's, because she hasn't really spent much time in the holodeck, and now she sees the appeal. What do you suppose she would go for?
Well, let's see. I know that she likes working out, so maybe kind of like maybe a mountain climbing type of program. I mean, we saw that the diviner was a bartender, which was an interesting thing because you're supposed to be able to tell your bartender anything. So it's not, I think that she may have dabbled with a holodeck, but not necessarily have gotten like with a full program like everyone else had. But I think she wants maybe a program. Oh, you know, it would be neat if there was like a program that was a big, like a language course of some kind.
Oh, that could be interesting. How would you visualize that?
You know, like a classroom where she could talk to what Klingon, you know, or a Kazon, you know, or all these different species, because I don't know how the diviner trained her specifically, but that's kind of like how I would see her staying in practice, maybe like a big Rosetta Stone program in the holodeck, right?
Right. Oh, that could be really interesting. And visually, that looks really cool in my head. I like that. That's much more interesting than what I was thinking, where she's just exploring like various martial arts and ways to just physically let out her anger and issues. And like her dad is a punching bag or something. You know, she's just really letting it out.
Some type of, literally like working out your problems, like the way that Jank and Pog was working out his problems.
Exactly. I just think she saw that and was going to follow his lead. Yeah. Like that could really work. Yeah. I also had that note about the she called it a barista, but the bartender being her father. Like the holodeck is seriously going after their psyches. Oh yeah. Like that's a deep like wound for Gwen. And you see just how deep it cuts too in that scene where she says, well, he asks, do we know each other? And she says, not as well as we think. Yeah. And like, oh, this is what you wish you could do with your father. Have like a solid relationship where you could just talk, and you have nothing near that. And that's, that hit the heartstrings a bit.
It's a really good point that you're making about what the holodeck was doing, because not only was it trapping them with their own programs, right, to keep them interested, but it was also doing kind of like what technology does today with all of these algorithms and all of these puzzles and games, where it keeps you, you know, scanning your face so you can turn yourself into an emoji or some type of animated character of yourself, or something that keeps you glued to the screen. You know, there is that famous mythology of the den of the lotus eaters, you know, where, you know, you would go, and I think this was like Jason and the Argonauts, where you would go in and they went into this place where they don't want to leave because it's perfect. You know, there's no pain, there's no hunger, there's no strife, there's no drama, there's no anxiety. And all you want to do is just be there forever, because it's literally that den is keeping you there because it's serving your every need. Right. Right. And
yeah, why would you want to leave?
Why would you want to leave? You know, why would you want to leave like Rock? Why would she want to leave all of these glitter snooches and sparkle sea huggers? Right? Because they make her happy. No, right?
Right. Yeah. Absolutely.
Remember that one planet they went to like way earlier on in the season where, you know, she had her tricorder out for the first time and she was just covered. I think it was like that. Was that like terra firma, where she was covered with all those little puffballs?
She's being swarmed by all these cute little cuddly creatures, and she's just loving it. She's in bliss.
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
Yeah.
We have time for about one or two more observations before we get into our discussion. So what else do you have?
How about, we saw Goth Janeway, as I call her, in the first half, and I was halfway expecting Goth Janeway to show up again when we figured out that hologram Janeway had been tampered with.
Oh, right.
By the construct. And I was waiting for it. And I was a little disappointed that didn't happen. Maybe, now, I realize it's not the same modification, but like making that very distinct evil Janeway versus good Janeway. But then is that ruining a part of the point of the story? Because she didn't mean to, and it does need to be her, right?
She specifically doesn't know anything that's going on right now. It's kind of like backdoor programming, right? So
yeah, she's been hacked.
Yeah, she's been hacked. And that's that's a big deal. We don't always just don't jump right into discussion because that's
let's do it. Let's go.
Big deal. Yeah. So Janeway being hacked at the very end, not only is she like terrified for herself, she's more terrified for what's going to happen to the kids, because this is trust, right? This is all about, what happens when trust is broken. And we've said this before, like many times, like on the show, that the adult figures in this series have either broken the trust with the kids or have been unapproachable because they don't know whether or not they can trust them to begin with. When the kids were running around the space, the station to find Janeway or find a ride off the planet, and then Ferengi Mom with Dal and Nandi, and just and of course Akona, right? So every single adult figure in their lives that they've run into so far has been not the best experience, and
no.
Every time they came back to the ship, they were able to get back to the safety of their ship and the safety of hologram Janeway. And now that's the one thing, right? And now
which is why it had to happen, right? Because she's been their rock, not the rock talk, but their rock this whole time. And if you want to delve into full chaos mode, this is exactly what you do. Once again, subversive or subverted expectations. Because I had this all mapped out in my head, how this episode was going. Yeah. As it was going on. Yeah. Here's what I thought. It was Janeway uses she looks into the holodeck programs to see what everybody's in and starts, merging them together, thinking, this is how I'm going to get them to think outside the box. Okay. And while they're at it, they can have a little fun too. And then at the end of it, it would be something like, actually, I stole your idea, which one time you mentioned that maybe the secret key was Gwen's weapon.
Oh, right.
As the skeleton key. I thought that makes enough sense. But you know what? All of that is too obvious, and that's why it didn't happen, and that's why it's all got to just go crazy mode. It all has to fall apart before we can put it back together again.
Yeah, in the last two episodes, we saw Vice Admiral Janeway, the real Janeway. She's taken out of the picture, and now hologram Janeway is taken out of the picture.
Yeah. So okay, I got to jump to a final thought because it's perfect right here is... I did not realize while watching this episode the first time that what the writers did is they kind of halved the cliff into the chaos. We started with Admiral Janeway and the Dauntless last week, and then this week we had to catch up and have hologram Janeway do her thing here. Now, next week, we can nosedive down the cliff.
Well, we hope. That's
we better. We're running out of time.
I know. And that sounds like the logical progression of all of it. And what I do also love about the way this episode was structured is you start off with the supposed threat of leaving the neutral zone and the actual threat of leaving the neutral zone. And hopefully somewhere along the line, they learned that somewhere in that 86th attempt to try and get out of the neutral zone is a strategy that they might be able to depend on, because now they can't depend on Janeway, and that's a really interesting turn. Like, now what do you do? It's a real Kobayashi Maru kind of moment, where it's not in the tradition of Kobayashi Maru scenarios. We all know that the definition, or most of us know that the definition of what happened all the way back in The Wrath of Khan in 1982, Kirk said that it's a test of character. It's not a test of getting it right or getting it wrong.
Right.
And we also,
you don't win the Kobayashi Maru.
You don't win it. You just have to live with the choice, right?
Can you do that?
Can you do that? And can Dal do that?
So what does this mean, Norm? That's my big question going forward. What is next for hologram Janeway? I have questions, a lot of them. Like, one, how far back does this whole hack operation go? I mean, did the construct take over Janeway way back in the beginning, or was this a recent thing? We don't know.
In terms of the episode, I think they said that at least they're aware of the hack when Zero put together that Janeway was compromised right after they made the decision to stop going to Starfleet to try and find Starfleet.
Right, but the thing activates through her eyes. You can see the glitch.
It doesn't mean that the construct hasn't been hacking away at her this whole time in small bits and pieces.
Exactly, which leads to my next question, which is, how bad is she compromised?
Right.
Like, how bad is bad going to get? I think you nailed it when you said the kids can't rely on her. because they don't know if they're talking to hologram Janeway or the construct.
Right.
So they are on their own now.
Yeah, they
and
can't.
What might she do in the meantime?
Yeah, I mean, they can't even really kind of use her to consult with. Like, what do you think, hologram Janeway? And
Can't do that anymore.
Yeah, and I think hologram Janeway even knows, like, you can't trust me. You can't.
That's just it. Like Janeway, there's still enough of hologram Janeway to realize what she has done and how awful she feels about it. That look of horror on her face. Why are you looking at me like that? Oh, dang.
I mean, when Janeway said at the very beginning, when she said, what isn't present today might reveal itself tomorrow, do you think that she in some way was trying to warn them before things happened?
I don't know if it was that or if it's just the writers doing some clever foreshadowing.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know. That's a very good question. Maybe we ought to ask Aaron Waltke or the Hagemans on Twitter or something, see if they get back.
Yeah, it feels like it's kind of like a chicken and egg type of moment where Janeway is looking behind, maybe kind of like, there are those scenes where when people are trapped behind their own mind, they're kind of looking at like a version of themselves and they can see the people that they're supposed to talk to, but they're like yelling, but no sounds coming out of their mouths.
Yeah.
That kind of a thing.
Maybe like that.
And Janeway's like banging up against her own mind and saying, kids, listen to me. How can I get to them? How can I explain things to them without tipping off my hand that the construct has me locked behind my own firewall or something like that?
Yeah. This reveal opened up so many new questions about what's going to happen with hologram Janeway. What is she possibly going to be able to do? And is her program possibly beyond repair? What does that mean? Like, I'm getting dark now.
Yeah. No, you know what? I think that's a great question. How far is too far? I don't know like how far that a computer engineer can go and recode Janeway. The only one smart enough to do that right now on the ship would be Rock, or maybe Zero.
Maybe working together, especially.
But I think with the Dauntless, like right there in front of him now, it feels like no matter like what they need to do, they won't have enough breathing room to do it.
No, that's definitely not their top priority right now, which makes you wonder, what is hologram Janeway going to do, like basically behind their backs while they're attending to other things? And what does that mean? What is that going to do? Is she somehow going to sacrifice herself so she's no longer a danger to the kids? Or like, my mind has been spinning down this rabbit hole. Can you tell?
And that's what I love about this episode, because I think on the surface, a lot of Star Trek fans may just kind of like, okay, this is nice. It's the hologram that goes wacky episode, and we've seen a billion of those in the history of Star Trek. Well, many fans have, and I completely understand that, and that's true. Fans that have been watching Star Trek for decades, but not this audience of fans, particularly, not the audience that this particular series has been focused on, the younger fans. Yes. This is their first Star Trek. So I think it would be encouraging for a lot of us out there, if they're talking about this episode with a lot of other younger fans or fans that aren't really understanding of the franchise, to maybe explain that this is what happens with a holodeck. And this is kind of a tradition in Star Trek. Like you said earlier, Shar, a tradition in Star Trek. And welcome to your first tradition in Star Trek.
The first of many holodeck malfunctions you may be watching in your life.
One of the last things I wanted to get to, Shar, is something that you brought up to me off recording, and I think it's a really important topic, and I want to give you enough time to talk about it.
Okay. Well, I want to preface this by saying I might be reading into this too much. Not everybody's going to agree with me, and it's because I have emotional eaters in my family. The ice cream scene kind of like I took note of the way that they're basically using food as a coping mechanism. And when you eat your feelings a lot, like if it becomes a habit, that can be problematic. And I'm not saying that like they're just going to delve into a full-blown dysfunctional eating pattern or anything like that. But I do hope that this sort of treatment of food as a coping mechanism doesn't become a common repeated pattern, because then that might be problematic. That might not be sending a great message. And I hope that ice cream is just one of many tools in the arsenal of coping mechanisms that our kids develop to process their emotions. That's all I want to say about that.
I love that you bring this up, because let's go back to Rock Talk in Preludes, because Rock Talk's coping mechanism is the Nutrigoo bowl. Right?
I almost brought it up last week, but I held off because that's like the one semblance of joy she had going for her at all in that point in time. And I had to give that a pass.
But it makes sense that, you take a look at Rock, who's probably, in her storylines, like probably one of the most devastating, at least it is to me. And, so Rock associates that Nutrigu again with acceptance and joy and happiness. And now, Jankum has his giant bowl of ice cream. And, they're saying instead of confronting your feelings per se, let's just pile it on and enjoy like this. Let's turn this frown upside down.
Well, that's basically what they're doing. And that is fun. It's just, yeah.
But do you think that it's balanced out in between these two episodes, like what you're saying about the emotional coping mechanism eating with, say, what Rock and Zero were saying in the previous episode of it's better to talk out our feelings because they're doing both now?
Well, then that kind of does save the scene for me because they are using the food as a method to gather and express their grievances.
Right. Right.
So they're doing a little bit of both. And so that is why I thought maybe I'm being a little too nitpicky on this scene. It's like, get your own issues out of it. But if I'm thinking about it, maybe other people are too. And that's why I have to call it out.
I don't think it's nitpicky at all. As a matter of fact, I think that the more that we look at the way that these episodes on the surface are different, the more similar actually they become. Because in Preludes, you're talking about things in one way, but in this episode, you're dealing with kind of like the psychoses of these kids in a completely different way, as represented by each individual kid's hologram program. Dao thinks he's a failure, so he needs a crew to tell him he's not. Jankum wants to fight everything because he feels that he's been slighted by someone he doesn't know, right? Rock just wants to feel loved and feel and make sure that she's making a difference. Zero can't help but always try and solve a puzzle. Maybe it's the Medusan in them, and then Gwen is kind of like this wild card because she hasn't really done anything with the hologram just yet. These are things that are just part twos of what they were talking about in Preludes.
Exactly. I wanted to give this episode the alternate title of Preludes Part 2 because it really does feel like a continuation of that. And that's why it was such a surprise, too, that we got more of this when we thought we had enough of it. But really, no, we did not.
Right. And it kind of bookends the same way. Janeway being taken out of the picture, as we said before in Preludes.
Yeah.
Janeway getting taken out of the picture.
Exactly. Those halves again.
This episode. Yeah. With the dauntless.
And now they're going to tie together.
Exactly.
Now we can move forward.
All right. So I like that, being able to talk out the two different directions of these two different episodes, Preludes in this episode. I like that they're texturally so different, but thematically very much the same.
Yeah. It really is cool, isn't it?
I think so.
They managed to do the same thing two very different ways.
Exactly. And that's the best way to subvert expectations. One, not giving the audience what they think they need, right?
Right.
Which is a continuation.
Yeah, we got what we needed, not what we wanted.
Exactly. And that's going to pay off. It's going to be interesting to see how this falls just in terms of the rhythm of the series, when we watch this and binge watch this, which we eventually will after the season is over.
I can't wait. I've said that how many episodes, but I really am excited to do that.
Yeah, it's going to be fantastic. And not really a whole lot of time since it's only like 20, 22-minute episodes, which is sad and great at the same time.
I mean, you could do it in a full day if you wanted.
And we will, with ice cream.
Oh, we will. Maybe with some ice cream.
Maybe with some ice cream, right?
Yeah.
We're wrapping up the show here, and we have a couple things, just a couple of last-minute ideas that usually pop up into our heads right after we get it all out. We get out like the big ideas. So anything left, Shar, for you to say?
Well, like I said, this episode subverted my expectations in every single way. And in the end, I'm glad that it went this way. I didn't know we needed the episode until after I watched it for the first time. And then only then could I really see what this episode is doing. And I cannot wait to see how this fits in the rhythm and the overall feel of the season as a whole. For sure. I have a feeling it's only going to appreciate with subsequent rewatches and time and in that context too. Yeah. It was almost painful this week. This is what we got and it's all we got. And it's not what we really wanted, but it's what we got. And now, okay. I can wait another week. it's okay. We got this. Take a deep breath, just like we did last week.
Exactly.
We didn't know after Preludes that we had to take the deep breath and then hold the breath.
That's a good way of putting it.
They didn't tell us about that.
Yeah. Oh, that's funny.
So, yeah, I'm only gaining more appreciation for it with time. How about you? What do you got?
Something tells me that, we're getting to this point where it's going to be like a gasp at the end of every episode, because that just feels like the way it's going to be. Right.
Wouldn't be surprised.
Gasp out of surprise, gasp out of, I don't know, disappointment that we're not getting more episode out of these 22-minute snippets. Right.
No more.
What we do in Mission Log, we watch episodes over and over and over again to do our research and our reviews. And rarely do we get a chance to do that nowadays with so much entertainment at our fingertips. And I think that's a shame, because sometimes you think that you understand what's, the story that's in front of you, and maybe you do, but not fully. And I think that that's where like the appreciation of doing what we used to do when there wasn't as much entertainment, as so readily accessible as it is now. We were able to like watch that TV show over and over and over and over again and find the morals and meanings and messages. Maybe if they were there, or maybe if that's just something that we kind of convinced ourselves of being there. Either way.
Depending on what you were watching
or how you were feeling at the time. But I do like that we have the opportunity, because these episodes are so short, to be able to at least get one or two more times of a viewing in before the next episode drops, so that we see the things and the messages that are there that may not have been so obvious to us before. And I think that in this episode, seeing all the different layers of what's affecting these kids through their holodeck program really does add more to their story, adds more questions, but also certainly gives us some answers and kind of leads us into what's next. And that's the big thing. Every episode leads us to, okay, what's next? What's next?
Right.
Like right now.
Yes. And that is when when these credits start rolling, I say, no, I want the next one right now.
Well, we're going to have to wait until the next one for sure. So that's it for our show, Shar.
That's it. We did it. We did another one. Yep. Thank you, everybody, for joining us here on Mission Log Prodigy. And if you enjoyed our show, please make sure that you like and share and subscribe and do all the things. Go through our whole playlist. We have Mission Log Prodigy for every episode previous to this and a whole bunch more. We've got Mission Log Engage. We have Mission Log The Orville. We've just got Mission Log Live. We've got all sorts of cool stuff on there. Mm-hmm. Mission Log Prodigy is produced by Roddenberry Entertainment, and production and technical direction is by the fantastic Earl Green. Our website and your opportunity to comment and connect with us is missionlogpodcast.com. And if you want to support Mission Log directly, please do so at patreon.com/missionlog.
Thank you, everyone, again, for taking the time to be with us, and we look forward to sharing our thoughts with you on episode 18 next week. 18. I'm not ready. And now, as we do with each and every standard episode of Mission Log Prodigy, we would like to leave you all with these very special incoming transmissions.
Receiving listener communications. Message playback begins.
My name is Rook and my age is 7.
Rook, did you like tonight's episode?
Yes.
What was your favorite part of the episode?
My favorite part is when Murph sung the song in the black and white and grayish world.
Yeah, I like that too. What did you learn from the episode?
I learned basically 2 facts. Always trust Zero.
Yeah. Zero seems to know what's going on.
Yes. And also, things that you see might not be real when you see them. But they might be real, too.
So, appearances might be deceiving?
Yep.
This is a Roddenberry podcast. For more great podcasts, visit podcast.roddenberry.com.